Hi, everybody. It's 8 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. My name's Brian Moore, and I'm with Camp Quality Ohio, and I'm their psychosocial director. And I have the pleasure of introducing Leah McNeil, who's our presenter. Real quick, couple housekeeping things. Can you make sure that you hang out till the end so you can do our feedback poll? And then just a plug for our networking cafe tomorrow. I don't know if any of you have been able to attend the meetaways, but I know that I've thoroughly enjoyed the folks that I've been able to talk to during the meetaways, so I would encourage you to get into those if you can. So Leah has a master's of social work, and she's a registered social worker with experience in pediatric healthcare, youth justice, child welfare, and oncology camps. And then throughout her undergrad, she worked as a summer staff member with Serious Fun Children's Network camps, and has since worked and volunteered at camps throughout Canada, the US, UK, and Ireland. Leah has trained in complex trauma, family therapy, parent training, and Leah is currently working in pediatrics at a children's treatment center. And then Leah, is your, I lost you there, where are you? Is your mic on, Leah? Did we lose her? Knuckles, I think we lost her.
I think we did.
She just messaged me. She got disconnected. She's signing back in right now. So sorry about that.
I think it was the Born in the USA that sent her.
Thank you, Richard.
I thought of it.
Nothing to do with that. Nope, wasn't my choice.
It was Brian. He
Oh, that's
said,
hilarious.
You know, we need this song.
Too funny.
And this is all being recorded, so.
Yeah. So hopefully you all are enjoying the conference. I know that I've really enjoyed the panel discussion today, and I don't know about you all, but my head is swimming with things that I want to talk to people about and investigate, and so some really good information, definitely. Knuckles, would you like to lead us in a camp song possibly? Or
I was just gonna say that. So I will lead us in a camp song, and I'll lead us in a Camp Okaizu camp song called Captain T's Lake. It's all about Okaizu and our campsite. So there are a few movements that go along with this song. I'm going to teach it to you, repeat after me style, and I'm also going to teach you those movements. Does that sound good? All right. So our hand movements are pat, pat, clap, clap, over, under. But you can pat your knees. You don't have to pat the air. So I'll do that, and then I'll go on and lead us in the song. So at Okaizu, we start all of our songs off with a great big oh, and you guys can unmute yourselves and sing along. So it's pat, pat, clap, clap, over, under. You don't have to say that though. On Captain T's Lake, there's a place we know.
Okay, can't please.
On Captain T. Okay, I'll just sing it all together, and then you guys can. Yeah. So it's on Captain T's Lake. There's a place we know called Camp Okaizu, and we love it so. We rock and we roll and we're really alive. We're the Camp Okaizu campers and we really jive. So boom, boom, diddy daddy, why don't you? Woo! Boom, boom, diddy daddy, why don't you? Woo! Boom, boom, diddy daddy, why don't you? Camp Okaizu, we love you. Woo! And that's one of my favorite songs to sing. And it's Leah. Oh, Leah's back.
Good thing, Lauren, because I was just going to say you're up next.
Oh, Leah's not back. Lauren, I think it's time for you to sing a song.
Okay. All right. So my favorite camp song is about one of my favorite cookies. Oh, Leah's back. Great.
No,
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry, but I was
Cliffhanger.
about to say I love that cookie song. Maybe we can get to it at the end. Sorry, everyone, just having a bit of technical difficulties, but I'm
That's
glad
okay.
that I
That's all
am back.
So I was just, I don't know if you got to hear my introduction, so I kind of went through and told them who you were. And then the one part that I left off, I understand you have a talent.
Hopefully I have some talents. I'm not sure which one you might be talking about.
This has to do with air spoons.
Oh, yes.
Oh, can you tell us or show us what that means, please?
So, quite a few years ago, I was hanging out with a couple of friends and we were jamming, as you do to any good song with air instruments. And I had decided to pull out the air spoons and realized that my rhythm with the air spoons being kind of two spoons back together, banging off of my knee, was quite a talent of mine. So since then, for about the past 15 years, my go-to air instrument whenever I'm really rocking out, whether that's at the car or at camp, is the air spoons. So.
So should we pull up that Springsteen Born in the USA song, or should we just leave it alone? We'll just leave it alone. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so am I good to go? Ready to start my presentation? Perfect. Okay, Knuckles, if you can just share the screen as you get set up here. So as mentioned, my name is Leah McNeil. I'm a social worker. I've got my Master of Social Work, and that is all completely inspired by my experiences at camp. And those fancy other three letters, RSW, just stand for Registered Social Worker. So I practice in Ontario in Canada, and that's kind of the three letters that we need behind our name in order to work as a social worker. My understanding is, depending on where you are in the States or in Canada, each kind of state and province has different letters to be registered. So as we set up, my journey kind of started at camps about 12 years ago. I was working out on the west coast of Canada in just outside of Vancouver, working at Zajac Ranch for children. And it was the first time I had my little taste of camp and what camp was like for children with kind of complex medical needs or medical needs, oncology campers, heart campers. And that really shifted my undergraduate degree. I was studying child development at the time. I changed to write my undergraduate, my thesis, my honors thesis on camp, on kind of supporting campers through a psychosocial lens. Since then, I've spent a few summers out in California as kind of in my introductory working with the Serious Fun Camp. I just love everything that camp is about, kind of being able to be a volunteer and be a staff and learning from others. So I'm really excited to be here to kind of talk about the brain and the body, my social work kind of lens, and combining that with my camp lens. So that's what we'll kind of spend today talking about. And so if we can kind of just move on to the next slide, we've got the plan for today. Yeah, so we'll just do a quick check-in activity. I'm going to describe this word. It's this terminology called the window of tolerance, which is really helpful for us to know about ourselves as individuals and to help us to better understand our campers or our staff or the volunteers or in whatever capacity we're working. This is a term that is helpful for everyone. We're going to talk about resiliency, the different types of resiliency. We're going to talk about how do we create certainty in times of uncertainty. And we're also going to talk about some camp rituals. And what I mean by that is like camp traditions, that camp magic, those things that work. And I know you guys as staff all know why they work, but we'll try to pair it with a bit of the brain science and the mental health side of how do we really set up campers for success and what's already working well. And hopefully we can kind of label that a bit more in some discussions with each other and share our experiences amongst each others. So yeah, that's our plan. We'll move on again. So my first kind of check-in is just to check in and let's just see how people are feeling. We've got a poll, hopefully that Knuckles can pop up for us in a second, just about how we're feeling. Where are you guys on your battery? Are you feeling good, feeling great, feeling okay? Have you had a long day of Zoom? Are you struggling? Are you empty? Just take a quick look inwards about how you're doing. And then I'll talk a little bit about why that matters.
Would you like me to share the results once they're all in?
Yes, please.
All right. We'll give it a few more seconds. If you have not already, feel free to answer that. There's one more person. And we will end that off. And here are the results. Can you all see it?
Perfect. Oh, okay. Quite impressive. Lots of people kind of in that feeling good, feeling okay. It's 8 p.m. where I am. I was expecting, to be honest, a few more people to be in the struggling, or it's a long day for them. And why I thought it would be really important to talk about this and to start about this is when we have an awareness of our feelings and where we're currently feeling and where our battery currently is, we're better able to utilize strategies and resources to help us to kind of feel better in that moment. Whether that's long-term or short-term. And there's a really great saying I like. It's from a neuroscientist. His name's Dan Siegel. And he always says, if you can name it, you can tame it. So if you can kind of figure out where you're going, you can put strategies in place to help you. So that's not just about kind of internally checking in with your battery. Sometimes that's also about our emotions. If you know that you're feeling angry or anxious, you might be better able to say, hey, what do I need in this kind of time of moment? Sometimes for me, when I'm feeling angry, if I'm able to label that, I know that I just need food. I don't know if anyone else gets hangry. A quick cookie, a sip of water or something might help out. So I've got some quick strategies on the next slide. I call them quick wins. For any of those who are in the doing okay phase, is there anything you can do right now that's going to make your day a little bit brighter? Is there anything about your lighting? Do you need brighter lighting or do you need less lighting? Do you need to just take a minute to really plant your feet on the ground? Lift your shoulders up, kind of put them back into place. Open up our heart kind of to the screen and to Zoom. We hold a lot of stress in our jaw. What if you just take a minute and unclench your jaw? Noticing any changes? What if you took a quick minute to just picture your favorite spot in the world, somewhere where you feel calm and somewhere where you feel safe? Maybe that's camp, but somewhere that brings a lot of fun and joy to you. Maybe it's standing on the beach. One of the perks about kind of being in a virtual world is you might be able to take a quick look around your room. Is there a photo you enjoy? Is there someone, a family member, a friend, someone that you can kind of look at and have a quick connection with? Our body also loves things that are related to the senses. Is there anything you can do that's going to activate any of your senses? Can you light a candle that smells good? I was feeling a bit anxious before this meeting, kind of talking to a group of people in a virtual world. So I made myself a hot tea, something to kind of hold on to. These are all kind of what we'd call quick wins, quick strategies to help us bring us back when we are not feeling at our best. Okay, next slide. And so wherever you are, that's okay. And I think it's really important when we're talking about stress and worry is to just validate people's experiences, to say that we are in unprecedented times. I don't know if there's a word that's kind of continuing to be echoed. It's uncertain times. There's lots of things going on in the virtual world. So wherever we are right now, that's okay. And it's really important, I think, for us to start with this because it's not just about our campers, it's also about us. You guys know the saying of putting on your own oxygen mask before you put on someone else's. It's really important that we take care of ourselves as staff, as our colleagues, before we run into programs. If you're feeling a bit depleted or you're a bit near that empty or you're struggling, are you able to tell a coworker? Are you able to check in where they're at? So maybe someone takes a little bit more of the energy, the camp songs, the fun, the excitement, and one of you does a bit more of the behind the scenes support. Are you able to complement each other's strengths and needs? So yeah, let's just be kind to ourselves, be compassionate to ourselves, and let's treat ourselves like we treat our campers, with patience, with kindness, with love, with all of those things. We can move on to the next slide. So spend just a quick couple of minutes talking about uncertainty. And so the COVID-19 pandemic has certainly disrupted children and our own expectations, structures, routines. We know children specifically thrive on routine, and we want our lives to be unpredictable. And this unpredictability, it's causing stress, it's causing worry, and it's causing anxiety. There's uncertainty in terms of education, health, income, food, housing. And what we can do at camp is we're going to try to figure out all the things, all the areas that we can create certainty to provide that little bit of structure and that little bit of support for our campers or for our staff or for our volunteers in any way that we can work together as a collective community. And it's helpful to know that worry is a feeling that's often triggered by stress. And our brains are really good at helping us think that we're doing something when we're worrying because we're spending so much time asking questions, panicking about the future, what's going to happen. But actually, it turns the thinking part of our brains off, the kind of rational part of our brains off. So it's helpful to try to find strategies to manage that worry, which we'll talk a little bit later on as well. Yeah, and I think what's difficult with the COVID-19 pandemic as well is that it's always changing, and it's ongoing. And that's kind of the uncertainty that can be really difficult for all of us right now. So we're going to move into another term, and it's called the window of tolerance. This is another term that is coined by Dan Siegel, who I mentioned earlier about the name it to tame it. And our window of tolerance is our body's ability to cope with stress. So when we are in that window, you can see in between the two orange slides right here, when we are in our optimal functioning, when we are in the perfect window of tolerance, we are calm, we are connected, we can handle stress should something come up, should it rise. Earlier today, my computer shut off and restarted right as I was about to start a presentation, caused a little bit of stress and panic for me. I kind of stepped up a little bit into the hyper aroused feeling. My heart was starting to panic, beat a little bit, starting to have that little feeling of overwhelm. But right now I've actually got quite a large window of tolerance because, as I mentioned, I come from the camp world. My body remembers that camp is a safe place. That camp is connection, camp is kindness, and that it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. So right now I've got a pretty wide window of tolerance. If we go outside of that window of tolerance, like I was just talking about, we go into a state that we sometimes call hyper aroused. And what we mean by that is highly emotional. So we can be anxious, we can be angry, feelings of overwhelm, worry, there's outbursts. This is often when we're feeling really irritable, angst. Sometimes when we're in this state, we're not kind of thinking rationally. And the other side of this is we can go into a state where we're hypo-aroused, which means we're completely shut off or we're not present, or we're kind of on autopilot. And what I've done is on the next slide, I've taken this little analogy of our window of tolerance, and I've translated it, kind of reimagined for camp. And I took this idea from a training that I had been somewhere where they had kind of talked about our window as a river. And I wish I could remember it so I could credit it, but I cannot find it. So if we picture our optimal functioning, this window that we have of like a large river, and we're at camp and we are floating down this river in our canoe, our kayak, our paddle boat, whatever our kind of method of transportation or pathway is. We want to be in a state with the most amount of flexibility. So if there are rapids, we can paddle really, really quickly through it and we can purposely travel that way. Or if we're in kind of a flat area where it's really stable or it's really calm, we can kind of choose where we're going. And generally in our optimal functioning, our days kind of go up and down like this, depending on what's going on. So when your computer shuts off right before you're about to do a presentation, you might be a little bit higher up, and then at other parts of the day, you're kind of in that calm, cool, collected. And anytime we're out of our window of tolerance, we're kind of in survival mode. What I also mean by hypo-aroused, I've got some pictures of kind of ice, like as if we're going through the land of ice. And generally when it's this, it's when we're kind of feeling quite cold or shivered, we're a bit disconnected. We're on something called autopilot. I don't know if there's any kind of, for all my other car drivers in the audience, have you ever been driving somewhere to work, to school, to the grocery store, and you get there? And you don't remember how you got there. You don't kind of really remember the drive along the way. That's what we mean by autopilot. The other thing about this with autopilot is sometimes same thing when you're driving. If you ever get cut off on the freeway or on the highway and you quickly swerve or you quickly panic or you quickly slam on the brakes to respond, you're not really thinking yet, you're reacting automatically, you're on autopilot. So this is kind of our window of tolerance. And if we go down one more slide, you'll see that our window of tolerance shifts depending on what's going on in our lives. So on the slide prior to this, we had quite a large window of tolerance, and sometimes there's things that are happening in the world or for us or for everyone else that can shrink our window of tolerance. So right now we've got the uncertainty of the COVID-19 pandemic. So for some of us, that has really, really shrunk our window of tolerance and how much we're actually able to adjust and to be flexible to things that we maybe could have been prior to March. Oh, there's also a spelling mistake in this slide, so I do apologize, I just caught it. So other things can impact our window of tolerance. So children who are going through hospitalizations or a collective trauma can have a smaller window of tolerance. If there are family difficulties at home, either conflict or parents are being separated, it is possible that those children currently have a smaller window of tolerance. If there's other stressors about the neighborhood and kind of poverty or gun violence or anything that might be going on in the community, that can also contribute to our window of tolerance. So how much can we handle before we're feeling really anxious, overwhelmed, or angry, and or before we completely shut off. So if we go to the next slide, yeah, this is kind of what we want to be supporting our campers. And the really cool thing about our optimal functioning, our window of tolerance, that kind of wide area, is that it can be learned and it can be changed and it can be modified. So camp is already designed for success. It's already designed to help campers to feel safe, to feel secure, to try new things, to be brave, to be courageous, to have a strong sense of self-esteem. So all of those things can support to increase our young people's or our own window of tolerance when there's other things that are trying to push it down and to make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. If anyone has any questions about that, feel free to put them in the chat and I can kind of come back to it at the end, or if anyone wants to kind of jump in now, I can try to explain things a little bit further as well if that was unclear. Let's move on. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to talk about resilience. What is resilience? Resilience is this idea of bouncing back. It's about the process of adapting in the face of adversity. So resilience is not a personality trait. What it does is it really looks at growth and utilizing our strengths to really move on and to learn. Maybe move on is not the right, to learn and to grow from experiences that we have. And resilience is built over time. So it's based on our own experiences, things that we as individuals go through, whether it's kind of going through this collective trauma of the pandemic or of a new diagnosis, of having cancer, of something that might be going on in the family. So it's things that we personally experience can contribute to our resilience. We also know from science now that we can carry resilience and we can also carry stress through our genes and through our DNA. So our resilience can also be passed down through our ancestors or through our family and the experiences that they also had, which I think is really cool that we have the technology to kind of see which parts of the brains are activated around stress and for what reason. So yeah, it's created in a number of different ways. There's different types of resiliency. Resiliency seems to be a big buzzword of 2020. So I've included some types of resiliency here, and I could probably go on and on about more types. So you've got individual resiliency. So how are you personally managing? And even on an individual level, you've got social resiliency, emotional resiliency. So how are you emotionally coping? And how are you managing friendships or staying connected to others? You've got group resiliency. So our campers or oncology, the population could have a specific shared resiliency. You can also look at resiliency within the family. So what experiences is that family going on? What traumas or what experiences or what difficulties are they having? What have they already overcome? And how is that helping them to kind of bounce back from other situations? You can have community, cultural, and organizational resiliency. So what I mean by organizational is like workplace. Is your workplace supportive and encouraging? Is there someone to check in on you? Are you having conversations? Are you setting up ways to be successful in these uncertain times? And how are you guys working together to support each other from an organizational level through kind of like leadership and policies and procedures? So that's kind of the start of resiliency. It can also be, it's learned. You're not necessarily born with resiliency. You could have parts of your personality, parts of your temperament that can help you to be a bit more resilient. So sometimes we're thinking about those campers who might be pretty easygoing or charismatic. Sometimes when we're thinking about resiliency, we're also thinking about what else is positive for these children, what's going on kind of outside of camp or in the family or in their communities. Do they have caring adults? Do they have safe places to sleep? All of these things create resiliency and support our campers and children all around the world to continue to grow. Cool. So next slide. So I mentioned earlier that we know that stress and worry thrive on uncertainty. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about how do we create certainty? So how do we find those things that we do have control over? And so we can kind of trick our brains a little bit into thinking like we have control of a situation and having to spend less time worrying about something else. So next slide. So at camp, I know we do a lot of intentional program planning. So it's about finding familiarity in things that are already existing. So do you have a camp schedule that you used in 2019 that is reflective of your experiences and the way that you're running camps in 2020? Sometimes even little things like using the same font or the same names, or if it's usually a trifold or a half-page fold, some of those things that are about the same can be really helpful for people. Are you running similar programs? Are you able to find ways to adapt them into either a virtual world or into, if you're running in-person, distance programming? And are you able to kind of keep the expectations? Do children know what they're expected and what they're kind of signing up for? Do you have some of your favorite songs and dances that you're continuing to utilize and to share? So Lauren was about to sing a cookie song right at the beginning of the presentation when I jumped back in. And I've actually had the pleasure of working with Lauren at a number of camps throughout the years and hearing that song. So for me, that kind of sent a really happy moment, and our bodies and our brains are connected. So I can remember that song brings a lot of joy and laughter for me. So right in that calming moment, when I was feeling a bit stressed earlier, that was really helpful. My body had remembered that I had enjoyed that. So are you participating in similar songs and dances? What are the staff like? Children thrive on rules. We know that children, they say they don't like rules, but they love structure. They love expectations to know where they're supposed to be doing, where they are, what they're supposed to be doing. Is there any part of a morning or an an evening routine that you can also be running? Do you usually run cabin chats in the evening? Can you continue to run them in the different types of programming that you're running now? So yeah, it's about kind of finding intention. Yep, you're good to switch. Perfect. So we're going to move into some breakout rooms now. So I'll have Knuckles kind of separate you probably into 36, like maybe 3 groups of about 9, or 2 groups, whatever's easier. And we're going to talk about camp rituals. And so what I mean by that is like traditions, things that make your camp unique, things that create structure and routine. These are the things and these are the memories that that our campers are bringing outside when they're not even at camp. They're bringing these experiences to the hospital. So do they have a little token or ribbon or certificate that they receive at the end? Is there a little saying that sticks with them? Are they willing to try new things when they're experiencing something new? What are you guys doing right now in your program planning? Either program planning or even like staff management, working with others, managing volunteers. What are you doing that's currently working well from an intentional programming point of view? And I want you guys to kind of keep in mind like safety, bravery, and connection, as these are all things that are also going to support resilience. Does that make sense, or any questions about kind of what the expectations are? We'll go into breakout rooms, have a few discussions amongst ourselves, and then we can bring it back to the wider group. Perfect.
Give me 1 second. I'm finishing that up. And I think that I assigned someone. There we go. There we go. And I'm opening up those rooms.
Perfect. I'll spend about 10 minutes.
Leah and Brian, did you guys want to go into a room?
Maybe in a bit we can just pop in. Stay out for a quick second and check in.
Awesome. Sounds great. Yeah, everyone looks like they're in their rooms, and
Perfect.
it is us 3.
Perfect.
I bet your heart was pounding when your computer
Oh
clicked on.
my goodness. I was like, thank goodness, like I know Lauren or can send her a quick WhatsApp message. And she was like, oh, it's fine. We'll do a camp song. And I'm like, okay, going back into my window. Like you're like, oh my goodness. Right. What it was like 8:01. Couldn't have done that at 7:50 and just a restart. Like no reason, no message, no heads up. I'm going to turn off and come back on.
But when I talked to Lauren earlier, she's like, oh, my friend is doing a session. It's like, well, I need a nickname or something just to throw her a curveball, please. So that's where the air spoons came from. So
great.
you can thank her for that.
Oh, perfect. Is there a way to message the breakout rooms? Like, would it be helpful if I just sent a message of that question, or do you think it was clear what they're talking about? Sometimes I just feel like I'm rambling, so I'm not even paying attention to what I'm actually saying.
Oh, I think it was clear. I thought of a couple examples that I wrote down of what
great.
kids, ritual-wise, things that we do that to build the connection, the bond, that's it's kind of between us type of thing. So,
yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And then
Sorry, for a second, my Wi-Fi like went in and out. There is a way to message the chat, the breakout rooms. Would you like me to send them something?
I think it might be okay, or I was just going to say, like, it might be helpful just to send a message about whatever I had on that slide, which I forget what it says, just about like what's working well, like in terms of bravery, connection. I feel like when I was asked as well to do this presentation, I was like, so do you want me to just talk about what camps are already doing? Like, because I feel like camp is already created, like it's designed for success anyways. So not necessarily.
There's been a nice theme of resiliency, and so
Yeah.
the panel discussion talked quite a bit. I mean, there's been several times, so some of what you're giving us overlaps some, but that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Not at all.
Repetition and practice.
Mhm.
Perfect. Perfect. And then does it go right until 9? Yeah, thank you. I can see that too. Nice message.
I think we talked about a 45-minute session, so
Cool.
isn't that typically what it is, Michael?
Yeah, for it sometimes it does go a little bit over, but yeah, it's usually around 45 minutes, and then we give some time for questions. 45 to 50 minutes.
Cool. But it like, and then questions, and then just kind of sign off. Because
Mhm.
it would be helpful if they will talk to like bring back a couple key points. I don't know if they either want to write those in the chat or if there's some brave speakers to kind of share or summarize a few things
How
that
about
they
if you
talked about.
ask, I think it's helpful in these type of settings to ask them to write it in the chat, and then everybody can save the chat.
Reflect. Yeah.
So that way, if they're trying to feverishly take notes, but if they know that, hey, everybody put your ritual in the chat, try to do a mini version.
Summary.
Yeah, not too long.
Perfect. Okay.
You have thoughts on that, Michael?
Yeah, I think the chat function is a lot easier, because
Right.
then we can read it off if they'd want us to, and you'd get more participation, and they can save it, as Brian was saying.
Cool. Okay. So that's mostly what I had to chat about. And then I've just got like my 2 final slides are like 3 kind of main points and a thank you. So if we kind of let them chat, how many groups did we end up creating and how many are in them? 3 groups of like
Groups.
8, 9 people.
I think they all have, about 2 have 9, 1 has 10. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it does actually take a bit of time to introduce themselves and possibly chat amongst themselves. Okay.
So where in Canada are you? I had the pleasure of going to Trillium Camp.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was
the like Hamilton location.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not too far from Hamilton.
Okay.
I live in between Toronto and Hamilton in a town called Milton.
Okay.
I actually just moved back here in January of this year. I was living in London, UK, up until last October. Went traveling for 3 months. Was very lucky that I got travels to Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, New Zealand
Wow.
before travel restrictions were in place.
Ooh.
Yeah, then I moved home, and I actually haven't left like my parents' house since moving home. Like it meant to be a transition, and then the pandemic hit, and I haven't had a need to leave.
So how long were you traveling? How long were you on the
For
road?
3 months. So
Wow.
I came home. I left London, UK last October. Came home for 3 weeks to like unpack, bring everything, put it back in storage here. Left November 2nd. It was about 11 weeks actually. I got home at the end of January. So I did 6 weeks in Southeast Asia, 5 weeks in New Zealand.
Was that just vacation, or was it some type of work study, or?
No, vacation. It was like transitional is how I viewed it. I had to move from London home anyways, had to job search. So while I was unemployed, I figured I'd maximize my traveling.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then the pandemic hit in March. It was a bit harder to find a job than I thought. But now I'm back to employment, which is good.
So what was the highlight of all your travels?
Oh, I don't know if I could share. The nice weather. So having winter, summertime and winter was nice. I felt like I went on 2 completely different trips. So, and I did 6 weeks in Southeast Asia, where I felt like I was traveling. I did some with a friend, some with my cousin, and some alone, and kind of in hostels and meeting people. And then when I was in New Zealand, I spent all 5 weeks with friends that I had met when I was living in London. So 2 weeks on the South Island, with a friend and 2 weeks on the North Island with friends. So they're almost like two very different trips. Like, yeah, very, very lucky to have fit that in.
Good for you.
Yeah.
What a
Amazing.
dream adventure.
Yeah. And Brian, Lauren said that you're a social worker as well.
I
Is
am.
that correct?
Yeah, I have a master's
Amazing.
degree in social work. So my background is drug and alcohol treatment, corrections, working with people with AIDS. And I worked as a therapist for about 10 years.
Nice.
It's been a good gig. And Knuckles is a future social worker. He's
amazing.
Yes.
Tell us more.
Camp has helped me find what I want to do. I am currently finishing up my bachelor's, and right now my bachelor's is in human development and family studies, and then I want to go to the master's in social work. My double major is in psychology, so I do want
Right
to
up
do.
your alley.
I was telling Brian I do want to do some therapy, but kind of like explore all the options of work that social work can bring.
Yeah,
And
that's
the beauty
amazing.
of social work is all the options and choices. And when you get crispy fried burnt with one population, you move to another one.
And so much about social work is built on the foundation of camp skills anyways. Like, I can't tell you the amounts of times that I'm just like, I already know this, empathy, connection. Or this morning I was planning with my coworkers like sibling workshops and sibling things, and they were just like, I love the way your brain works. I love how you thought of that. Or like organizing things by age. And it's funny because I'm like, that's camp. Like, that's not social work.
I work in higher ed now, so it's kind of cool that I get to work with students like Knuckles and help them decide what path and where to go and what to do. And I spend a lot of time talking people out of a psychology major, quite frankly.
Yeah, you don't need it.
It's like, look, you can't get licensed, and get that license. In the States with a bachelor's degree, you can be a licensed social worker, and that makes it so much more marketable.
Yeah. And then it's the master's, and then you can get licensed in certain states as well too, and then do direct therapy depending on the state.
And that's what I tell people. It's like, not to be pompous or arrogant, but I do what I want, and I don't have people telling me what to do. And I kind of like my lifestyle of do what I want. You know? So.
Amazing. Yeah, one of my really good camp friends, well, he's actually a friend from home first, who then went to the Painted Turtle about 5 years after I went, in California. He's now also doing his master's of social work. Teacher originally, was practicing as a teacher, and he's like, I want to do more individual work, but group work in a different way. And but it's fun that we have this camp connection, and he's also, social work life.
All right, Knuckles, we probably should bring him back because we're going to run late.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I will go ahead and close those rooms.
And no warning.
Yeah, we've been doing these meetaways, and
they've got it.
They give you a minute warning, and we're giving them a minute warning right now.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Oh yeah, because the breakout rooms like count down, don't they?
They do.
Yeah. Come back as you please.
In the meetaway, it was cool because your screen kind of went slowly dark. Bye. It was.
Hello, Chaos. Or Keely, sorry.
Keely, where's Jack?
Jack is with his parents now.
He was so cute during that camp song that you were singing. He was having, he just lit up.
It is his song. He's so funny.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Light of my life, that kid. He's hilarious. So keeps me entertained. We did a photo shoot today, so he's just been in a good mood all week, so I have to take advantage of it. I dressed him up as a grandpa, and then we did some skater boy, and his parents would come out and they're like, what the heck? I was like, you can go back to work.
Is that everyone back in now? Is there a way to see?
Yes, everyone is back.
Perfect. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you guys had some good discussions in your breakout rooms. We were talking about if it's possible for a few of you to kind of just summarize or share some of your ideas in the chat box and in the chat function. So if you thought of anything, if anyone shared anything that you're like, yeah, we should bring this back to the bigger group. anything that you were doing, anything that you found helpful, if you could write them in the chat box, and then it's kind of a nice visual reminder for some quite practical and actionable items and things we can be doing. So I'll give you a quick minute for that.
And if you're not familiar with the Zoom function in the chats, there's the 3 little dots at the bottom of the chat box. And if you click on that, you can actually save that chat file to your computer at the end. So some of these rituals and ideas that people type, you could save them that way.
Ooh, pen pals. That sounds great. Can everyone that knows how to access the chat and they're kind of reading along as well as we are? Tip the hat, have a top hat at camp to give shout outs at camp, and we have each camper and staff member a mini top hat to tip their hat virtually. That's amazing. We'll just wait for a few people to finish up anything else. Okay, and maybe Knuckles, if we could just go back to kind of the last 2 slides of the presentation, then we'll open it up for any further questions, and people can keep typing if you're in the middle of sharing something. So these are kind of just my final 3 thoughts, things to share with everyone in addition to what will be shared in the chat amongst yourselves about things that are currently working well. So it's kind of just talking about the beginning where we just check our battery, and if we check in with ourselves and how we're keeping ourselves energized, safe, happy, healthy, etc. We're going to be able to better support our campers and the whole camp program. So just 3 kind of quick tips at the end. Just make sure you're checking your battery, seeing where you're in. Are there any quick wins to fix that or to energize it as needed? Try to find that certainty in times of uncertainty. Try to find that stable, the structure, the routine, the expectations. Do your campers know what to expect from you when they're going to be participating in the programs? And use the power of camp or camp rituals, the magic of camp, the things that are already working well, just to continue to foster camper resilience and our own collective resilience as camp professionals. So that's it. Next slide just says thank you. And if there's any questions, either for me or for anyone else, or if you want to share anything as well, now would be a good time to do that.